Hi guys, it's Jerry Detweiler here from NAV. We've given you a little time to complete some of the early assignments in the boot camp, and I want to share a new one with you today, and that's to consider getting a business credit card. Now, up until now, what you should have done, or what you've hopefully done, is you've checked to see if your credit report is in the system with Experian commercial, Equifax commercial, and Dun & Bradstreet. Now, if you haven't gotten an invitation yet to get your Equifax report, that's because we're rolling that out to all NAV customers. So that will be coming shortly if you haven't received it already. When you do, of course, you want to check and see if you have a report with Equifax. Hi there, Drone, and hi there, Arlene. Glad you could join. So let's talk about business credit cards and why I want to suggest you consider getting one. The first reason is that they help build business credit. So I have an article that's mentioned in the notes here, and I'll link it in the comments as well, that lists all the major credit card issuers and their policies with regard to reporting small business credit cards to business credit agencies. So they all build business credit with at least one of the major agencies, and several of them do so with all of them. Now, the other thing they do is that many of them don't show up on your personal credit unless you default. So if you have activity from your business that is bringing up your balances, if you listen to the webinar about personal credit, you know that debt usage, your balances compared to your credit limits on your personal credit is a very big factor in your credit scores. So we want to minimize the impact of your business purchases on your personal credit if that's going to be an issue for you. So using a business credit card that doesn't report can be valuable if you need to keep that activity separated. Good recommendation. So again, there will be a link in the comments, but nav.com/report that lists all the major issuers and how they report to personal credit. So hopefully that will be helpful to you too. Hi, Megan. Glad you could join. So the other thing I want to talk about is besides the reporting. So the main benefit here we're talking about is building business credit and not affecting your personal credit with your credit card. But the other thing is many business credit cards have very rich rewards. They have higher credit limits. They offer rewards that are superior to many personal cards because they're trying to pull in the business credit card, the business owner. Business owners spend more on their credit cards. Now, I know that some of you are very conservative financially. That's awesome. If you want to avoid the temptation of debt, I have a solution for you. My solution is consider a business charge card. So a business charge card would require you to pay the balance in full each month. So you can't go too crazy and run out of debt, but it would provide many of the benefits of business credit cards. Now, benefit of business credit cards over a business debit card, for those of you who are using your business debit cards, is that they carry the full protection under federal law for fraudulent use. Business debit cards, I'm going to repeat this, are the only type of plastic that are not covered under federal law in the case of fraudulent use. So most issuers are going to try to make you whole if your business debit card is compromised, but it could take sometimes days, even weeks. And in the meantime, that money's out of your account. If your business credit card is compromised, it's their money, not yours. You dispute it and get the matter resolved. So business credit cards are much safer than business debit cards. If you're going to use a business debit card, please, 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 make sure you have alerts set up so you see if there's unusual activity, and make sure you talk to your issuer, your financial institution, find out what's their procedures and policies if the card is compromised. I was in a workshop with a business owner, and he told me, he said, my business debit card was compromised. I was standing in the bank lobby and watching the money drain out of my account. He said it was just surreal. And of course, he had bills to pay, and that was a real concern to him. Joyce, glad you could join us. Mary, hi, Jose. Glad you all could be here. All right, so we're talking about business credit cards and the advantage for your business. Now, the disadvantage, I want to be very clear, there are some disadvantages. One is that business credit cards, unlike personal credit cards, are not covered by the Credit Card Act. That's a federal law that went into place in 2008 that helps protect you from things like suddenly your interest rate goes up on your existing balance, or they change your due date and suddenly your due date changed, you didn't realize it, and you miss a payment, you get a late payment. That law does not apply to business credit cards. Now, many of the issuers have adopted many, and in a few cases, all of the provisions of the Credit Card Act to their small business credit cards, But it is important to make sure that if you're going to use a business credit card, that you're paying on time, they have systems set up so that you don't default and you don't run up debt that you can't repay, because it could get very expensive if you have a late payment and end up with what's called a penalty rate, where they raise your interest rate because you've been late with payment. So just understand there's that caution that you have to be aware of with business credit cards. The other thing I want you to be very, very careful about with business credit cards is giving a card to someone else. So it could be you have a business partner, it could be an employee. Watch out. Once you have given them that card and authorized them to use it, you've authorized them to use it. And if they use it for something you don't approve of, that's not considered fraudulent use. So remember a few years ago, I was contacted by a guy who had given employees credit cards to fill their vehicles as they went out on jobs. He had an employee who went and spent like $2,000, not on fuel, on other things, and then never came back to the job. And he said, that's fraudulent use. Well, unfortunately, because he had authorized them to use it, it was not fraudulent use. So really think about this. I've seen people leave companies and there's still a balance on the credit card that they're on, and then they have trouble sort of breaking up with their partner and breaking up with that credit card. So think that through if there's more than one person in your company who's going to be using the credit card. Hi, Mel. Glad you could join us. And Johnny, glad you're here. All right, so questions about business credit cards, throw them in there. I definitely want to see them while we're talking, and I will answer them in the comments as well. If you have questions about choosing a business credit card, then let's move that to the comments. I'm going to bring in our credit card expert at NAV, Brittany Brackenberry. She's going to answer your questions about choosing the business credit card that's right for you, because there's so many great rewards and programs that are out there that might be of advantage to you depending on what you're trying to accomplish with your business. All right, so again, the overview of business credit cards. They do report to business credit, so they do help you build business credit. Many of them do not report to personal, so they keep that activity off your personal credit. They don't carry the same protections under the Card Act, but they often do offer richer rewards. So let me give you just a couple other pointers here. When you apply for a business credit card, the issuer is interested in your personal credit scores and your income from all sources. So even if your business is fairly new and you don't have a lot of revenue in your business, this could be an easy, fast way of funding your business, because as long as you have decent credit, and I'm talking probably mid 600s for your credit scores, personal credit scores, and you have revenue from other sources, even if it's that your spouse is still working full-time and would pick up the bill if you couldn't pay it, you can list that on the application, and that's really what they're looking at. They're not really, in most cases, looking at the time in business or revenue, the other factors we've talked about with business credit applications. So you can get them pretty easily. You will have to sign a personal guarantee. That's a given with these small business credit cards. So you're going to try to pay on time. It doesn't mean it necessarily shows up on your personal credit, but you do want to understand that there's that risk if you end up with debt that you can't repay. And then, of course, with the personal credit card, you use it, pay on time. If you can pay it in full, great. If you can't, look at the interest rate. There are some low-cost business credit cards that could be cheaper than other sources of funding. We're going to do an event next week where we're going to talk about different types of funding, which ones look at business credit, which ones look at personal credit, and what they care about. So we'll go into more detail on that. But overall, what I found is for many small businesses, especially younger businesses or businesses maybe with fluctuating revenues, these can be a great tool for financing at a relatively inexpensive cost. Not the cheapest money you can get, but it's also a lot cheaper than other types of funding that may be more expensive. All right, do we have any questions? So Milt, you've been checking out business credit cards. That's great. Glad to hear it. And Joyce, glad you found that helpful. Now, when you go into your NAV account, you'll see with the business credit cards, we have something called MatchFactor. And what MatchFactor does is help you identify which types of financing, including business credit cards, are better, more likely to be approved. It's not approval odds. So if you see a 90% match factor, that doesn't mean you have a 90% chance of getting approved. It just means you meet the majority of the criteria that we're aware of. So you can always click on that match factor, and it'll give you more details about why it is or isn't giving you the match factor score that it's giving you. So hopefully that will help you narrow down the field a little bit as you look at these cards and decide which ones are more appropriate for you. All right, before we wrap up this brief Facebook Live, do you have any other questions about business credit cards? Just throw them in there. If not, we'll take them in the comments. So Again, to bring you up to speed, you have the webinar on personal credit. You hopefully have a DUNS number. You've gotten at least one vendor account, hopefully 2 vendor accounts. Those take a little while to report, so they probably aren't showing up on your credit yet, but at least you've started that process. And then you're going to consider a business credit card so that you can build business credit that way too. Next week, we're going to move on and focus a little bit more specifically on financing and financing options so that you can see what's available to you. But if you have any questions in the meantime, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm happy to help. I'm happy to help through the bootcamp Facebook page, or just shoot me an email, Gerry, Gerri, at nav.com, and we'll make sure you get an answer to your question. All right, thanks everyone. I hope you have a great weekend.